everyone. My name is Tom Goldsby, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's Masterclass session and the Masterclass series dedicated to warehouse technology excellence, brought to you by Kerber Supply Chain. Today's session is titled WMS in the Cloud. Let's go ahead and get underway. So I'll serve as your host today. My name is Tom Goldsby, and I am the Haslam Chair of Logistics at the University of Tennessee. And I also serve as the co-editor-in-chief of the Journal of Business Logistics. I'm really pleased today to be joined by Scott Brask. Scott is the Vice President of Cloud and Security Operations with Kerber Supply Chain. He's fulfilled many different roles at High Jump Kerber Supply Chain over the past 14 years and focused on cloud-based systems in particular for most of the past 10 years. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tom. Great to be here.
I'm going to turn things over to you in just a few minutes, but please allow me to go over a few things with our audience before I do so. First of all, just to make everyone aware that this is the second of 5 class sessions in this Masterclass series dedicated to warehouse technology excellence. Perhaps some of you joined us on Tuesday when we looked at 10 critical capabilities of WMS. You see that we have 3 more classes to follow, and we maintain the Tuesday, Thursday cadence over the next 2 weeks, and we welcome everyone to join us for those sessions. Also, just to point out that this is the 3rd Masterclass series we've run in recent weeks. We've also had Masterclasses on labor challenges and cold storage trends, and if you're interested in accessing those sessions, they are available on demand, just as today's session will be available on demand within 48 hours of us completing the session. If you're new to the Masterclass, you might be wondering why we're here, and that's to help tackle challenges of today's increasingly complex supply chain, bringing you best practices and innovative thinking from academics like myself, as well as industry insiders and senior leaders like Scott. What we're trying to accomplish is to provide guidance and insights in managing your supply chain as a competitive advantage, making it a strategic asset for your organization, an opportunity to excel, and ultimately conquer supply chain complexity. So with that, let's go ahead and go over some housekeeping items. All of your phone lines out there are muted, so don't worry if you've got a little background noise in your setting. That's understandable in these chaotic times. We cannot hear you. However, we can hear your questions if you submit those questions using the questions tab in your GoToWebinar menu. And we're open to receiving those questions at any time, and we're going to reserve the final several minutes of our time together today to address those questions. Again, I do want to remind everyone of the handout that's available, Safety in the Cloud versus in-house security, that is found in the handout tab of your GoToWebinar menu. Well, most of you did answer the poll question as you arrived to today's session. And let's see those results. The question was, what percentage of your applications have you migrated to the cloud? And 71%, the vast majority of you indicated 0 to 25%. So Scott, it looks like a great opportunity here to convince some folks as to why they might want to consider moving to the cloud. Next in order then was 25 to 50%. 9% of you indicated that you'd migrated some. Significant share at 25 to 50%, and then 14% indicated maybe more than half, 50 to 75% of technology has migrated to the cloud, and then 6% of you apparently are quite advanced in that migration from on-premise to cloud-based supply chain technology. So some interesting results here just to kind of set up our discussion today. Of course, the supply chain technology of interest is the warehouse management system. And so if you'll allow me just to provide a little bit of background on the WMS, I think most of you are probably employing a WMS in some shape or form, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud, whether it's a legacy system off the shelf, or maybe integrated into an ERP. The basic functionality is as depicted here. And this is a slide that I actually use in my teaching, and I'll have to admit I've been using this slide for many, many years. It underscores the basic guidance that we expect from a WMS to guide receiving, order picking, verification, and shipping activities within the confines of the warehouse. Of course, there's functionality that certainly does exceed what you see here. Matters of yard management, interfacing with order management systems, a whole host of activities that Scott's going to help illuminate for us. But again, what we're interested in doing today is look at how this technology is seeing very rapid growth in the migration from on-premise technology to cloud-based. And the next slide speaks of some statistics that I gathered from a technology market research firm, and I just point out that these are very fresh numbers. Just in the last few days have these numbers been made public, and it suggests that as of today, by best estimations, the WMS market stands at about 2.4 billion US dollars in terms of the global WMS market. And the firm indicates that the market is holding steady despite the pandemic. Does suggest that there are sectors that are experiencing some degree of famine, if you will, that might be putting these technologies investments on hold. But there are other industries that are advancing or even accelerating their investment today in light of surge activity that they're experiencing. But in the next 5 years, year 2020 to 2025, the market is expected to grow by 16% CAGR, cumulative annual growth rate, which is very robust. That suggests that by 2025, the market is going to more than double, which really blows me away, because Scott and I were talking before the session got started. WMS technology is more than 25 years old. And if it took 25 years to achieve 2.4 billion globally, and to suggest it's going to more than double in the next 5 years, I think that's very remarkable. Something is clearly happening here. And while the US, UK, Germany, China, and Japan will maintain market prominence, there is expected to be considerable growth throughout the rest of the world. And where does a lot of this growth come from in terms of why are so many clients, so many global regions jumping on the WMS, I hate to say bandwagon, it makes it sound like it's just a popular play, but there's a good economic reason for doing so. I think it's in large part by that final data point you see there, that on-cloud WMS market is expected to grow by 28.7% in the next 5 years. So that speaks to tremendous growth of cloud-based in particular. And that's the focus of today's topic. And I did borrow from the folks at Kerber Supply Chain to provide a quick side-by-side comparison of on-premise WMS and cloud-based WMS that we'll see in the next slide, that speaks to some assertions that are made. And these are broad assertions, but I think they're pretty reasonable. And I'll just allow people a moment to kind of look at the side-by-side comparison. But you know, these are pretty compelling. What we're going to do next is we're going to transition to Scott. And Scott's going to provide us with, I think, some even more compelling evidence that underscores why there's so much interest, not just in WMS today, but cloud-based in particular. So Scott, with that, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Tom. You know, overall, very good information. I will say at Kerber Supply Chain, we are seeing some of those growth numbers that you're seeing or alluding to, and it's good to see. So what I thought I would do today is take some time to outline what I am seeing in the cloud market, and further what I'm seeing in the cloud WMS space. There is some variance there and some overlap. So overall, why customers are moving to the cloud, just in general, their workloads to the cloud. This, I believe, is from a few key areas: CapEx modeling versus OpEx, security consolidation, operational focus and ability for you to compete, compliance for your stakeholders, this along with the ability to work from anywhere, and the underlying flexibility of cloud. I will go into more details on these in the upcoming slides. What I'd like to do now is really talk about some of the attributes on cloud, you know, some of the attributes from the general cloud are still very relevant to WMS in the cloud. There are a few others that pertain to having a WMS in the cloud and the underlying meanings of it. These attributes are: how do you scale up for growth overall? Do this and keeping, scaling up and keeping the system performant, the security of the system, recovery and supportability, reusability and portability, and the associated testings of the change. And again, I will go into a bit more details on these in the upcoming slides. First off, as Tom indicated, in the investment on-premise and cloud are different. The fact that cloud systems provide an OpEx modeling means a few things to you. One is that it allows for a lower barrier to entry, as you do not need large upfront investment. This makes systems available to a broader set of companies, from large enterprises to SMB, really giving a common area of competitiveness for all organizations in their ability to leverage software to compete in the marketplace. On top of the cost modeling, the cloud offers a benefit of consolidated security. This is very beneficial to organizations as it improves their current security disposition with little or no effort. This then coincides with compliance, as reports are available to you with inherent best practices built into the platform. And frankly, these are attributes of competitive marketplace, whether it's a software cloud, a public cloud provider. These inherent security benefits are really what drives the competitive landscape when it comes to cloud. Next, with the low barrier to entry and the inherent security benefits, these releases companies from the technology to focus on their use of the system and ensure that they're getting all the business benefits, and the focus on their strategies as they grow. Obviously having focus in an area in which you are driving your business and the strategic initiatives, technology can be a very distracting thing, specifically when it doesn't go right. Part of the security and best practices on leveraging cloud, you do inherit that compliance. So there's an underlying security element, and then there's an underlying attestation of that security, which is referred to as compliance overall. Whether that is Security One, or excuse me, SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, international standards or ISO, HIPAA, FedRAMP, and many more. This allows you to give your shareholders confidence and ultimately put you in a better position of your needed compliance, and really, again, give just a higher level of confidence to shareholders, whether you're a publicly held company or a privately held company. Being able to prove you're operating from an infrastructure point of view in best practice really does lend to confidence. Next is resiliency. This is also very key. Given the size and structure of cloud, they have many data centers. This is, again, one of those competitive landscape areas for cloud in general. And essentially, by having many data centers, it does bring in the ability to have some resiliencies. That at the end of the day, many of our customers that are doing on-prem just can't rationalize financially. And then overall gives you a better options around business continuity. As we are aware in these days, in these times, the ability to work from anywhere is key to what many of us have been dealing with today, as many of us are working from home. On top of this, the ability to get data quick and make ad hoc decisions with data is also key in today's world. You know, and to add to that, you know, there's a lot of inquiries out there and things that people need data and touch data to make good business decisions quickly. This really gives that ability. And then lastly, flexibility comes in two flavors. Not only the ability to scale the solution up and down to meet the demand in the important business fluctuations, hopefully always on the up. The second is your commitment to vendors in the model is also more flexible, opening the ability to change if the product, the supply chain product is not meeting your needs and or your strategies. Now, what I thought I'd do is just go a bit deeper into the benefits of WMS in the cloud. As I talked to, many of the common cloud functions are innate and beneficial in WMS. There are some further things within WMS that kind of drive, and I thought I would go into a bit detail on them. You know, given the nature of a WMS and the importance of it in your operations, scalability and availability are very important. Many customers view this as very key to what they want to do, along with having how many nines are available. Furthermore, with this, how does the solution scale to support the change and growth of the business? You know, as alluded to in Tom's numbers, the WMS is growing, customers are growing. We have experience with that in our own solution and really see that across the board. Next, performance of the WMS is very key and is very important, and it really ties into the ability to bring product in and get product out, and provides you the ability to be more predictive about your ability to grow. As you have a standardized performance, you can really predict, you know, we're going to grow X% over the next year. You have confidence in your ability to staff that. Next is security of the WMS, and as alluded to, this is very key, not just to WMS but also to just general cloud. Security of the WMS is very important as the warehouse management system holds data pertaining to inventory and orders. Keeping data away from bad actors is key to both compliance and uptime. As the maturity of cloud and as security, we get better in that area. The other side of it is cybersecurity is becoming more and more of a threat, with seeing, you know, I would say a larger swath of ransomware that ultimately lends to financial loss, as well as data disclosure, which are both things that are very bad and can really impact the business. Recovery and supportability, you know, really helps drive the use of the system, and also ties very closely to your business continuity plans. Understanding the time it takes to recover and with what data loss allows, or what is known as RPO and RTO, are key. Recovery point objective is the time your data is and the amount of potential data loss in a disaster scenario. And then the recovery time objective is the amount of time it takes to get the system back up. Ultimately, these key cogs are major portions of business continuity planning, but you know, overall business continuity planning is how long does it take us to get back up? But really, the underlying is you know, what is the business? You know, what is the dollar figure when you go through a disaster? Planning for a disaster is key to understanding and understanding your liabilities and risks. And looking at your RPO and RTO times really allow you to really gauge and get to a number that allows you to make sure that you're fitting the appropriate business continuity planning and RPO and RTO times. Along with that, supportability of the WMS is really key. As software sometimes does have issues, the ability to quickly recover and doing so with the least amount of time, with the ability to do root cause analysis, helps to limit future problems, and is very key in driving to stabilization and getting to operational effectiveness. When you look at the last two attributes, I do tie them together as they really truly do support each other. The ability to change and or reusability or portability of software, and to support the business change, the size of what that change is, and how many scenarios do I need to test because of the change are really, really key aspects of WMS in the cloud. And this, along with that is also the system to not only truly test the functionality, but also the ability to test the process of the change are key. These factors ultimately really drive success and adoption to business change or process change. And given the the world that we're in today, and the years and the growth expectations of the warehouse management system, the ability to change and adopt to business change are going to be keys to your competitive landscape and your success. I want to thanks for the time, and I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate those perspectives.